Welcome into the NBA Morning Deuce. It is Sunday, January 17th. Timekeeper, what time is it?
Oh, exactly 11 p.m. We're right on schedule today, which usually means it's going to be a good pod.
On the East Coast.
On the East Coast, yeah.
Tom Brady is probably going to win another Super Bowl. And we're going to talk about some basketball. There are two games still going on. The Pelicans and the Kings are in the fourth quarter. Pelicans are up 7. And the Pacers and the Clippers, that's right, are about to be at halftime.
Clippers up 3. Clippers up 6.
So we'll get to those games in a few. Definitely the Pelicans game, maybe the Clippers-Pacers. We'll see where they're at by the end of the show. It was supposed to be a 7-game Sunday night slate.
Supposed to be.
But coming into Sunday, we knew that the Wizards would not be playing because they had a COVID outbreak. And then we found out on Sunday, today, that the Sixers-Thunder game was postponed. This is now the 12th game that's been postponed by the NBA this season. And the reasoning I was reading was that the Sixers had to do contact tracing because of the game they played against the Suns. No, against the Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies.
Because Jonas Valanciunas is now out for health and safety protocols. But the Grizzlies game tomorrow has yet to be canceled.
Yeah, it's really wild. So the Grizzlies had just played the Timberwolves, and Cat had just, I'm sure we're going to talk about, Cat getting testing positive.
I forgot to put that in there, but obviously we should mention that. Yeah.
So Cat tested positive. Unbelievable. That's a story on its own, and it's horrible.
Well, look, it's a horrible story because of his family history. Cat's going to be fine.
Right.
Like, Cat's going to be okay. It's a crazy story because for those who don't know, or if you haven't heard us talk about it on the show, his mom died, and I think they said like 6 family members maybe have passed away from
I know
COVID.
It's multiple. Yeah.
It's a few, but more important, like most specifically, his mom, who was like his biggest fan, his best, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. He has had multiple interviews where he's like, "That cat is dead. This is a different person." Like that's
he's in a dark place for sure.
And even the note that did you see the note that he put on Instagram?
Yeah.
Where he said to his nieces and nephews, he's like, "I won't end up in a box next to grandma." Like that was some dark shit.
Yeah. So.
But anyways,
separate from that, they played the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Which affected Jonas Valanciunas, which then got the Sixers, and then since the Sixers had played the Grizzlies so recently, that's what got this game canceled. So
oh, go ahead.
It just is making this contact tracing thing more confusing. Like it seems like there's been, especially with the Wizards, when like it was clear that they were like everyone who played the Wizards.
Every team that played the Wizards had a game postponed or a player sitting out within games, and then the Wizards were still playing games, and now the Wizards have like 3 or 4 guys that have COVID. When it seemed obvious that it was coming from the Wizards all along.
Right. Okay. And then how about the Sixers are playing with Seth Curry sitting there on the bench, and then the Grizzlies, this is a week ago, and then the Grizzlies fly across the country and play a game the next day. How is that not contact tracing? I don't.
But also, so if Cat had COVID and Jonas was guarding him, no one else guarded Cat the whole game, is what they're trying to say.
I'm not sure. Maybe everyone else tested negative, and then there was something to do with his test or something. I'm totally speculating, but yeah, the point is the contact tracing is so confusing, and I really don't have a grasp of it. But that's
I don't understand how the Sixers have to postpone a game because Jonas Valanciunas has COVID, but the Grizzlies are still playing tomorrow as of right now.
So I didn't see that he tested positive for COVID. Did you?
Or whatever that he was. Yeah, that's right. Sorry, I don't want to misreport this. I didn't see that. He is out for health and safety protocols.
Right.
But if it's okay. Here's the thing. We're getting down a crazy I don't know what the word is, path for the NBA, because if Cat has COVID, which we know for a fact he tested positive for COVID, and then because Cat had it, Valanciunas is sitting, either he has it or they're waiting for the tests or he's contact tracing. But we don't know if he has it, but because we don't know if he had it but he played Cat, now the Sixers players have to sit because they played Jonas, who may or may not have it because he played against Cat. However many, that seems like a slippery slope for the NBA to be doing it like that.
100%. And that's what also with the length, there's just, if they had time to test negative, and if they had time to test everybody and be like, okay, we're good to go, if there was more time in between games, say 2 to 3 days for every game, which isn't feasible. It's just that the games are so close together, they don't have time to test guys and clear guys. And now with the amount of cases we're seeing, they're postponing 12 now, right? This is the 12th game that got postponed?
Yeah.
It does seem like it's unraveling, or snowballing, I think is a better term. Like, yeah, we're seeing a guy in Minnesota test positive, and it's affecting a team that didn't even come anywhere near Minnesota. Really wild.
Yeah, it just seems like
I think I'm speechless right now because I don't really know. I don't see how this can continue. I really don't.
Yeah, but that's what everyone's saying. Cancel or postpone the season until you figure it out. But it's just like they're standing firm. But I guess this is why they scheduled the season the way they did, and there's no second half scheduled yet. But how many games are going to have to get postponed for them to have to or shut down the rest of the league while they at least replay the games that they postponed?
Unless they're planning on making them up at the back end or something. I don't know.
It just doesn't. Yeah, the rules are so confusing. Everything's so confusing, and it's not fair to these teams. Although some teams seem to be handling it better than others, I will say it, which I will get to on one of my overreactions. By the way, it's over. We're going to do overreactions today.
Overreaction Monday.
Overreaction Sunday night and Monday for this week. But we're starting with obviously our recap from the weekend. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say other than I would anticipate Memphis not playing basketball tomorrow on Monday, or today if you're listening to this on Monday, right? It just doesn't...
Unless they all were able to get tested today and they all come back clean, It's just I truly don't think the Sixers had enough time to get test results back.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the games that did get played today. There's three of the 5 are done. Kemba Walker's back. He made his debut.
How'd that go, Joey?
Well, it says it in the graphic if you're watching it. The Celtics lost by 30 to the Knicks. I don't take much away from them losing this game. You can't lose by 30 to the Knicks. Still, Jason Tatum is still out, so that's something. And Kemba's Kemba didn't play well. Kemba was third. He only played 20 minutes. He was 3 of 13 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3. But I think there is the positive in this for at least for the Celtics is after the game he said his knee felt okay. So ultimately he was going to have to come back at some point. He was going to probably struggle. And Kemba goes through lulls he always has in his career where he's struggling to get going and get in his rhythm. But he's so important to this team, I think, just as a leader. And they're also not that deep, although, this is going to impact my guy Peyton Pritchard's minutes for sure.
He is quickly becoming your boy. He was able to get 17 minutes, but again, they don't have Jason Tatum. So,
here's the question. The question, I guess, becomes with Kemba back, in Peyton Pritchard playing well, could he just take Jeff Teague's minutes?
Jeff Teague, he played terrible today. He went 0 for 4. But how's Jeff Teague's been solid, right?
Okay.
So far?
They've been playing well until this. That's why I don't. Let's see what happens the next couple games.
Yeah,
I get it. It's the Knicks. The Knicks have not been bad this year, and again, it's not like the Knicks blew them away. Offensively, it's not like they scored 140 points. It's that the Celtics couldn't score. Teams have off nights. They've been going through the COVID thing themselves. They've got guys coming back that have been off, and now Kemba, who's been off for a long time. I think, to me, watching it, from what I saw of that game, they just looked out of it. The Knicks, it's not like the Knicks looked like it's anything particularly special in this game. To win this game, just the Celtics shot the ball really poorly and looked a little out of it. I will give you one of my, I guess since we're on the Knicks right now, I'll give you one of my overreactions from this week is that Emmanuel Quickley has a legitimate chance to sneak in to the Rookie of the Year conversation this year. This kid he's really good, and they've been talking about potentially starting him, but even if he just comes off the bench, if he gets the minutes that he's getting and he stays healthy, I mean, he's averaging over the last what 3 games? I think it is now 19 a game, 47% from three, 52% from the field. I mean, he's balling, and when you see him shoot it, you're like, it is a pure as pure gets jumper.
Yeah, and he missed a little time earlier in the season.
And so did Toppin. Him and Toppin were out like
Right.
around this at the same time.
So the games he's played in, like he's just been really solid for them. I could see it. I could absolutely see him. I mean, it's all going to depend on his minutes for sure. He got 21 minutes, but if he can essentially take 6-man minutes or even starter minutes, I think he's in the conversation for sure. Because the only person doing any scoring for this team is Julius Randle and Alec Burks, really, when he's healthy. RJ Barrett's
up and down.
Just yeah.
Well, here's the thing. It's all about Thibodeau, right? If Thibodeau decides that he trusts the kid to play major minutes every night, then he'll play. But when you look at the biggest thing is they have no shooting on this team. Like they cannot win games consistently. Now they're 6-6, which is probably better than most people thought they'd be, already, even at this point in the year. So it's because they're playing good defense. They have no Reggie Bullock's the best shooter on their team, and then no one else can shoot it, right? So could quickly become the best shooter on this team, and average. I mean, right now he's only averaging like a little under 10 points a game, but that's because early in the year he wasn't getting a ton of minutes. If he gets consistent minutes and touches,
and I'll tell you what,
he could get up to around the 15 point per game mark.
Yes, and the minutes I see him taking are Austin Rivers. That's the name I was trying to come up with. Austin Rivers, he just stinks. He's just not really any good.
Or Elfrid Payton. What about Elfrid Payton?
Yeah, I mean, I think Elfrid Payton is slightly better than Austin Rivers, but like Austin Rivers got 16 minutes tonight. To me, that's the spot where like if Quickly right now is getting 20 minutes, by the end of the season he can be getting 30, taking a huge chunk of Austin Rivers minutes.
Let me tell you this: if Elfrid Payton's playing 23 minutes and only getting you 3 assists, then Elfrid Payton doesn't need to be on the floor for you because that's really all he is a distributor. Quickly at 8 assists.
I know. Dude, he's really good. I know.
He played really well.
My buddy, who's a Knicks fan, was touting him early, and every time he does that, the guy turns out to be terrible. Like I think Alonzo Trier was the last guy he was saying was really good. Who's not even in the league, but he might have been right about Quickly.
I think he may have signed with somebody.
Alonzo Trier?
Double check it.
Really?
Because of the expanded roster. Oh no!
Okay.
You know what? He got drafted in the G League.
Okay.
In the G League draft.
Point is,
with Michael
my buddy
Beasley and Lance Stevenson.
Oh my God. My buddy might have been right about Quickly.
We didn't even talk about that, did we?
No.
Yeah. We probably don't need to.
No.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens with Quickly, but I really like his game. I think he has a shot to be pretty good. Elsewhere tonight, the Jazz. I think it's because you have been crushing them for not playing well. They've won fifth in a they're tied with the Lakers for the longest win streak in the NBA at the moment. They've won 5 in a row.
And now they're beating teams that are actually decent, like the Nuggets, you know.
I tweeted this. I actually tweeted this earlier, and this isn't even. I don't think this is an overreaction. Jordan Clarkson is probably, other than I guess Boucher, who we talked about. Jordan Clarkson's got to be the favorite for 6th man of the year right now. He's playing out of his mind. Coming into tonight, he was averaging 17. He had 23 in this game.
Oh, wow, that's been flying under the radar for me. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been getting more minutes and more touches because Ingles the last few games has been out. But over these last games when Ingles isn't playing, he's been just balling, and it's efficient too. Like he's shooting something like 43% from 3. So I can see that. So I mean, they're playing really obviously playing really well. But I think more so the story of this game, from what I watched, the Nuggets desperately miss Michael Porter.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. And so we know they lose Jeremy Grant, and that's a huge hit. But like to not then also not have your other wing, like really good wing that blossomed in the playoffs last year. Dude, Jokic and Murray combined for 65, and they only put up 105 points.
Yeah.
That's
Jamal
insane.
Murray had 24 in the first half.
The scoring around them is dreadful right now. And I mean, I guess the silver lining is that Michael Porter Jr. is gonna come back. Like at some point, we think. So
Yeah, I
it's
know,
not
but
like
in the 4 games that he played, he was averaging 19. He was shooting above 40% from three, above 50% from the field. Like, who knows how long it's going to take him to get back into the flow
yeah.
when he comes back. Like, it crushed them. They were banking on him so much this. Now, they still shouldn't be this bad. Like right now, they're a sub 500 team. That just seems unacceptable.
Yeah.
But yeah, losing Jeremy Grant and essentially right now losing your two best three men, which would be Jeremy Grant, who they had last year, and Michael Porter Jr., who hasn't played
I
most
think
of
a
the season.
huge reason they didn't pay Jeremy Grant was because of Michael Porter Jr. blossoming.
Yeah, and I probably think most teams in the league weren't going to pay Jeremy Grant $20 million. Although, actually, that's not true. Wasn't there a report that Denver offered him and he went to he chose Detroit because he wanted more of an offensive role?
Maybe. I'm not remembering that report, but
Yeah, I think that actually came out. It kind of went under the radar because, like people were just like, "Why is anybody offering Jeremy Grant?" He left Denver. Yeah, I don't know, but I thought I saw that, but maybe I was wrong. But I think Jeremy Grant chose Detroit over Denver.
probably for a bigger scoring role, which
Right? No, that's what
Yeah.
that was the reasoning, that he wanted to be more involved in the offense.
gotcha.
But yeah, they're desperately missing him. But they're also right now, just because of how brutal their offense is outside of these two guys, and even Jamal Murray. Like now, it's not even a game to game thing. It's a half to half. The guy had 24 in the first half. This should have been a blowout. And not only did they lose, he only ends up with 30. Like it's just.
And Donovan Mitchell had a really bad game, and they still lost by 4. So it's a really bad loss for the Nuggets. I think this is still one of the best teams in the West, but I am getting a little bit worried.
I mean, I'll say this: they're now, I think, either 0-2 or 0-3 when Jokic scores over 30 points. So obviously, that's not the key to them.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. To me, I mean, looking at this, the key is to get more guys in double figures because they had 2 tonight, which is nuts.
Right. I mean, look at the 3-point shooting. Will Barton 0 for 3, Paul Millsap 0 for 1, and Gary Harris 2 for 7. It's just.
If this sort of shit
They're
can't
playing
get Bol
PJ
Bol,
Dozier. They're playing PJ Dozier a lot of minutes.
if this sort of shit can't get Bol in the rotation, then I don't know what's going on there.
I'm telling you, Mike Malone is sabotaging Bol.
Starting to come around to that, yeah.
I mean, I hate to just gloss over the Jazz, but because they are playing really well, but like, I'm not overly surprised about the Jazz playing well in the regular season. This is just what the Jazz are. I mean, they'll go on a win streak. They'll probably go on a losing streak at some point. They'll be just enough. They'll be just good enough to be like a 5 or a 6 seed in the West and lose in the first or second round. It's just this is the Jazz. This is just what they are. They literally didn't change. They're the exact same team they were last year, which some people might say is a good thing in a season like this. But it's still you can't really glean anything from them being on a 5-game winning streak at this point. I don't think.
No, I don't. I mean, look, I will gladly apologize to the Jazz if they bust into the Western Conference Finals. I just don't think there's a chance it's going to happen. But I think second round is where this team will finish, and anything beyond that is a successful season in my mind for Jazz fans. I don't know. They're not getting a title with these two guys. So Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. So. I'm just not going to get excited about a 5-game win streak.
And then the other game tonight that's done as of now, this Pelican game is about to be over, so we'll talk about that towards the end. Dallas, another game where we have to talk about the losers because the losers are the story. Dallas loses 117-101 to the Bulls with Luka Doncic going off for 36, 16 rebounds, and 15 assists.
It hurts, man.
And it wasn't even like an inefficient 35. He went 13 of 30 from the field and 6 of 11 from 3. And then he apologized after the game. He said he was selfish. The loss is on him. That doesn't seem good. I mean, maybe he's just trying to do something to like get the guys going.
Yeah.
Because this is another team that just hasn't been very good this year.
He also, I don't know if you saw the game. I'm trying to remember what night it was. I believe it was Saturday night. Oh, it was when they played the Bucks. They had a absolutely horrible final possession. They got an offensive rebound. They should have called a timeout. Instead, Porzingis took a bad shot, and he threw kind of a hissy fit on the floor and looked like he might have been yelling at Rick Carlisle. So I'm wondering if he's trying to like mend the fence a little bit. I don't know. It was a bad look for him that night, and maybe this is kind of like a maturity type moment for him. Speculating, but
yeah, I don't know, man. But they just haven't. I mean, they've been going through some COVID stuff too.
That's what I was going to say. So
Maxi Kleba didn't play tonight. Tim
Dwight
Hardaway
Powell.
didn't play tonight.
Josh Richardson, they are actually decimated tonight.
Yeah. So
Jalen Brunson, they were very shorthanded.
But he had 36, 16, and 15 against the Bulls.
I know.
And they only scored 101 points.
And it's not like Porzingis played bad, right?
Well, do you want to talk about Porzingis?
I do, yeah. Actually, this game
you're-
kind of rolls into both of my overreactions, but the main one is.
Well, hold on. Before we get to that,
Okay.
we do that, we obviously, if we're going to talk about this game, we have to mention that the Bulls won the game,
yes, 117-101.
and that Lauri Markkanen had 29 and 10, and he completely outplayed Porzingis. Just totally outplayed him. They got a lot of production off their bench from their vets. Like, this is probably the best game that I've seen the Bulls play, and Zach LaVine and Kobe White were awful, which is an interesting thing, right? Like, if they can get wins like this without those guys, maybe they can develop a little bit more. They're still not good yet. But they were – this is – you know what? You know why this is good for them? Because over the past week, Billy Donovan and Zach LaVine have both come out publicly saying, we don't know how to win. We need to learn how to win, because they were losing a lot. Yeah. And they came out and they played well and they won a game, and their vets stepped up. So it's a good win for them. Like, the efficiency from Garrett Temple, Thaddeus Young, and Otto Porter went 23 of 45 from the field. That's pretty good from those guys. Probably never going to happen again. But for one night, the Bulls look like a championship team.
Whoa.
It's overreaction. It's overreactions. So your overreaction. You want to talk about Porzingis first?
Yeah, I do want to just Markkanen. I think from the second or third episode ever on this podcast, I've planted my flag on the Markkanen hill. I think he's awesome, and I think in a couple years, if not sooner, he's going to be like talked about. I don't know, but
I don't like Markkanen, so
yeah, I know.
I mean, I don't dislike him. I just
Right.
don't think he's like a franchise.
That's one of the players I think we're pretty far apart on. But anyway,
I think he's a good player. I think he's an attractive gentleman.
That's not even debatable. But basketball player, I think he's going to be really good. Okay. Porzingis, that is my first overreaction, and I don't think there's a guy out there in terms of, we brought up wild cards the other day. I forget who we were talking about as a wild card, but Porzingis.
I just remember you quoting Charlie.
Always Sunny. I think Porzingis is the biggest wild card in the NBA in terms of being able to sway the standings and sway how the postseason is going to go, because he's been dinged up and just not quite right for so long. Like, he said his extended playing time of being healthy is so limited in the last 3 or 4 years. People just forget how damn good this guy is. This is a team with 2 superstars on it, Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis, but people forget how good Porzingis is because he's just never available. Mm-hmm. So the overreaction is that this guy is the biggest wild card out there this season, because I just think in the first 10 games, it's pretty clear Luka's not ready to win games by himself. But I think with Porzingis healthy and looking good, this is a team that could get to the Western Conference Finals. Now, it doesn't look great that Porzingis has 20 points and they lose by 16 to the Bulls, but I don't know. I just feel good about...
that makes him a wild card.
Yeah, I guess. I feel good about how he's looked. I watched their previous game, his first game back, the loss to the Bucks, and I don't know. He just looks really, really good to me.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Are you, because this question may make you backtrack a little bit on this overreaction. Are you saying to me right now, on January 17th, 2021, the year of your Lord, 11:25 Eastern, that Kristaps Porzingis is a bigger wild card than Kyrie Irving.
Yes, in terms of being able to sway the standings.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Because
Okay.
this might sound crazy. I don't think the difference between the Nets with Kyrie and without is that, like,
Well, now
they're
you're
gonna
jumping into my overreaction territory.
they're gonna be able to score so many points regardless, with or without him, and he's not like he's bolstering their defense.
Okay.
That's my yes.
I
Yes.
didn't even think about that until you were giving your explanation about Porzingis, but then I thought, like,
Yeah, I saw a smirk come across your face there.
yeah, I was smirking about Kyrie. I was
how about
thinking about
this?
Kyrie, and I almost started laughing.
Let's meet in the middle, 1A and 1B for wild cardness.
Fine. Well, you don't have to meet. It's your overreaction. I mean, Kyrie is quite a wild card. That might be who we were talking about.
I think it was
Probably
actually.
who we were talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. I gotta go to the standard. I mean, like, he's on the list for sure. I would say Michael Porter Jr. probably is on that list in terms of, like, when he comes back and he's healthy, is he good enough to, like, boost Denver up above what they're doing right now? Because they are awful.
Let's see who the Mavericks play coming up. If they get on a nice win
Yeah,
streak.
no, I mean, I guess that's fair. I mean, it's pretty. Yeah, I mean, in terms of teams that are, like, legit solidified playoff teams, because, like, there's teams in the West right now that you think, like the Rockets could play their way into it. Like, is Oladipo on that list?
They need a lot of stuff to go right, though.
Yeah,
for
like
that
the
to
Pelicans, they've been pretty bad. They're up 3 with 13 seconds left, but, like, is there who's the wild card on that team? Is the wild card whether or not Zion Williamson can do anything other than drive to the left? I don't know. Like,
yeah, I feel like,
but no, I think that's fair, because I think the Heat. I mean, not the Heat. Well, we're going to talk about the Heat, but I think the East right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 teams in the East that are absolutely making the playoffs, and obviously, I would say 6, even though the Heat are out of the playoffs right now. There's 6 teams that I think we're pretty confident saying. So there's no real wild card in the East that could sway the standings that much there, right?
yes, I'd agree.
I mean, other than Kyrie.
Other than Kyrie.
He would sway a playoff run more than the standings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's fair. I like it. When you first wrote it in the rundown, I wasn't so sure how I felt about it, but I get it now. I get it.
Okay, I think I delivered it. My rhetoric pushed that over the line for you.
You nailed the landing.
Cool.
Do you want to just do your other overreaction?
Yeah,
I guess
I
it
can
kind
do it
of
quick because we've talked about
part
it.
of it, yeah.
And it's just that with COVID and the amount of injuries, because you've highlighted that in the past, that these soft tissue injuries and guys going out, it is pretty close to impossible to know who the real deal is in the NBA besides the Lakers. And I'll just go case in point with my Sixers. Like, they've got 9 wins, right? But if you can't beat the Grizzlies and the Cavs without your best player, that's a concern, you know. They've got 2 wins against the Heat the Heat had 8 players, like, and those type of situations go up and down the league. Where we talked about getting to this 15 game mark, you should be kind of getting a better sense of record wise, like who's the real deal. But I think I need 10 more games to figure it out, or at least teams not getting decimated by COVID every night. Because so from one angle, if your team gets decimated by COVID, we don't know how good you are because you're missing players, right? But the flip side is, if you haven't been hit by COVID and you're playing these teams with 8 guys, you're being gifted free wins and your record is boosted. I just think because of all the players missing here and there, nobody's playing at full strength. It's just really tough to gauge who is the real deal. Besides, at the very top, we know the Lakers. I mean, question marks about the Clippers, but they're going to be a top team in the West.
I think that take applies more to the West than the East.
Yeah,
because I mean, when you say legit, you mean legit like like championship level.
Yeah,
we know who's going to be in the playoffs in the East.
I'm talking about like parsing apart who's better, the Celtics or the Heat this year. You know, like I have no clue. I have no clue.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's Yeah, but I think this early in the year, a lot of times that's tough regardless.
Yeah.
It is still really early. I mean, even with the COVID and the injuries and all that stuff, it's still 11 or 12, 13, no, more than that, 12, 13 games per team, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting to that point where we should be able to start to tell. Maybe we won't because of the way this season is. It looks like we won't be able to just because the games keep getting canceled and all that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, I actually do think in the East it's a little easier to tell than the West is just who knows what the hell's going on.
And utter
it's chaos out there. And I don't think we will know for most of the season because, again, like Utah's won 5 in a row. The Clippers have won 3 in a row. They're 9-4, but I don't think either of us buy the Clippers. The Suns are still playing well, but they're not playing as well as they were in the beginning, and they've had games canceled. The Lakers are honestly, the Lakers are the only team in the NBA. I think you're right on that they're the only team in the NBA that you can look at and be like, they're the best team in the NBA. I mean, obviously you can only say that about one team, but you can confidently talk about the Lakers and say, this is the best team in the NBA, and it doesn't even look particularly close right now.
Right. And I think there's other years where even at this point you're able to pinpoint who the second best team is, who the third best team is. But that, past the Lakers, I'm pretty confused.
Yeah, it's a confusing year. It's sort of annoying. All right, I guess we can go to my overreactions now. This game is still going on, Pelicans Kings. Now it's a 3-point game with 6 seconds left. My first overreaction was if Kyrie Irving comes back to the Nets, if he plays this year, which he is, I guess he's been upgraded to questionable for Monday night. Don't know what that means. Based on what Steve Nash was saying, it didn't sound particularly like he was going to play anytime soon or be back anytime soon. But I don't know. Maybe he will. I don't know what's happening. He's questionable. But if he comes back, I still think they may end up having to move him. Like, I think we, maybe not us, we probably didn't really talk about it a ton. But I think everyone has underestimated how much better James Harden actually is than Kyrie Irving. Like, we probably didn't talk about it enough leading into the trade and how it's going to impact the dynamic. We're talking about 2 different levels of player, right? Like, Harden is more on the KD. Like, no one's on KD's level other than LeBron. But if someone was close to that level, it's James Harden in terms of impact in a game, MVP level player, guy who can carry a team to the playoffs and deep into the playoffs every year. Kyrie Irving is and has never been that level of player, but in his mind and in a lot of people's minds, they think he is. And then just watching Harden in his first game with the Nets, it was clearly evident. Like, he is so much better than Kyrie Irving and probably fits better already with KD than Kyrie Irving.
Absolutely.
So the question it becomes, not can they fit, and here's the thing, it's not ever going to even be a question of will Harden sacrifice for Kyrie or will KD sacrifice. It's not going to be them two. Watch now that you've seen it on the floor. It's never going to be Kyrie and James Harden or Kevin Durant and James Harden sacrificing for Kyrie because they are on a different level as basketball players. The question is, can Kyrie sacrifice for them? And if he can't, how does that work? How do they? I still think it works, and I still think they score a ton of points. But I'm leaning into the idea now, watching them, James Harden and Kevin Durant play together, that there could end up being issues because Harden is, and I gotta imagine if you're Steve Nash, you saw it too, right? Like for example, if all things were equal in the offseason and they were going at, and all these guys were free agents, Kyrie, KD, and James Harden, they would have gone after KD, then Harden, then Kyrie. You know what I'm saying? So it just seems, and that's why this is an overreaction because it's one game, but Harden fits. I guess he fits any team better than Kyrie because they essentially do the same things. He's
way better at it. Yeah. I don't think that's an overreaction at all, but we know where I stand on Kyrie. I mentioned this trade almost half joking before, but like Kyrie for Andre Drummond could be the best possible move out there for the Nets.
Back to the Cavs.
Yes, yes. Like I would trade Kyrie for rim protection and depth. Whoa, there goes Cleo behind me. Yeah. I would trade Kyrie for rim protection.
They just traded away literally rim protection and depth to get Harden.
Right, but they elevate their offense by light years, in my opinion. And now, if you can get something to bolster that for Kyrie, I mean, it'd be done so fast in my mind.
It really does, but the problem is, the Nets backed themselves into a corner with this because Kyrie's value it was already down. It's already down. But you're not going to get a whole lot for Kyrie. If it gets to the point where they're going to try to move Kyrie, you're not getting much for that guy anymore. Like, if you're any team in the league right now and you even consider the idea that you want Kyrie Irving, you also have to take into account that you might trade for a guy who's going to just retire because he doesn't want to play for you. Like, so they kind of back themselves into a corner. So the question now becomes, now it's just about whether they can fit together. And I think they should fit if Kyrie's willing to play the role that he should play, which is probably like a glorified two guard, which is coming off the ball.
He's never going to do that. Dude. He forced his way out of Cleveland because he didn't want to do that. Like,
yeah. But you want to hear an amazing stat that I looked up today? I tweeted it too. But so in the first game, James Harden had 14 assists. By the way, that was his first. So here's two stats. I got two stats for you. James Harden, in his first game with the Nets, had 14 assists. That's his 33rd game of his career with 14 assists. Kyrie has had 2.
Okay.
In that game, 6 of James Harden's assists were to KD. Kyrie has 12 assists to KD in 6 games.
Oh, my God.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. I mean, sample size and all that, but it's telling. It really is. I mean, he's just such a superior player. And that was the point I was making earlier. If you have James Harden and Kevin Durant, your offense is fine. Your offense is good. And then Joe Harris. It's not like they don't have a shooter around it. So
they have guys who can shoot. Like Shamet should be a good shooter. Mm-hmm. He's shooting. TLC is a decent. Can go score in stretches. Bruce Brown's been really good for them off the bench. And in spots, he's a tank. He plays good defense. They have They have plenty of scoring. Yeah, that's not a problem.
So, of all the overreactions we've done, I don't think we've been on the same page more than this one.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say about Harden. Oh, and by the way, I think we also, of all the places that Harden could get traded to, we also, I think, it flew under the radar that he's back with D'Antoni, which is the guy who basically, elevated him to become an MVP in this league. He was a very good sixth man in Oklahoma City, and people saw what it was. Then he went to Houston, and he was very good with Kevin McHale. But I think this was when we worked together. Do you remember this?
I do. Very clearly.
When they got D'Antoni, I said he was going to be the MVP of the league.
I think you said he was going to average 30 plus, and I chuckled at that, or maybe 33, and then he averaged 34 that year, something
whatever
insane.
It was.
Yeah.
I think I went on the show I was producing at that time on live TV and made a really serious bet where I was like, he will win the MVP this year because he's playing with D'Antoni. Mm-hmm. And so this is a guy who was an all-star and was elevated to an MVP and all-NBA top 10 level player playing for Mike D'Antoni, right? So there's not – I mean, now he's back playing for Steve Nash, but D'Antoni's – it's essentially playing for a younger, cooler version. Not as awkward version. So
yeah. Plus, he's also there on the bench too.
Right. So I think a lot of people underestimated the value of him just going to the Nets as opposed to any other team, and his comfort level of being in. D Wade tweeted it, right? D Wade was the one who was like, it's hard to put a value on comfort level, and you can just see it in his first game how much more comfortable he is now being in Brooklyn, and that's a scary thing.
Dwayne Wade's good, man. That's just a great way to put it. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and then Harden. Did you see what Harden did? Harden basically called out everybody other than all the other media members, which I think it was basically calling out Shaq, but basically saying Harden put something out on Instagram and was like, it's sad to see all these media people trying to keep a black. We say all these things about empowering black men and black players and this and that, and then we see these guys on TV trying to get clicks and this and that, and then he was like, shout out to D Wade for keeping it real.
That's cool.
For me. Which it's clearly a shot at Shaq, because Shaq basically said you didn't do anything for the city and this and that, and he's Shaq. Again, we've talked about Shaq. Shaq's an idiot. Like that, he couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah,
the team was a game away from being in the NBA Finals. Like the guy was an MVP. That franchise was floundering before they traded for James Harden. Like, come on. Like you can agree or disagree on the way he handled the ending, but to say that everything he did in Houston was a waste because they didn't win a title is absolutely absurd. He's the second best player in the franchise's history now after Hakeem Olajuwon. I mean, I don't know. Back before Hakeem, there's probably other guys.
Well, we've established those guys don't really count too much.
Well, it depends how far back you go. If it's like pre-1970, they don't really count. But I mean, Harden, he saved that franchise. Oh, not saved. They weren't going anywhere. But he made them a contender every single year. So like to even say anything like that's absurd. And now he's back in a place where he's with Katie, and he's with his coach. Like it's a scary proposition, just them two.
It really is.
Which I think we're talking about something different now. We're not even talking about Kyrie anymore.
No, which is good because we spend so much time on that guy. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
But
yeah. All right. Here's my second over. Well, I guess third overreaction, because we already did Emmanuel quickly. The Heat need to make I think the Heat are going to have to make a roster move very soon. They got smoked by Detroit a couple nights ago. Like, absolutely smoked. They still didn't have Jimmy Butler, and Tyler Hero was out. But Bam Adebayo is back. And I said on the other podcast that I do, that's mainly about the Heat, that even if they get Bam back, they should beat the Pistons twice. That's how bad the Pistons are. And they got absolutely smoked. And I understand it's only 11 games into the year for them and that they have this COVID situation. But this is what I was saying. The Celtics have gone through a COVID situation. They're 8-4. The Sixers have gone through a COVID situation. They're 9-5. The Nets have gone through a COVID situation. They're 8-6. The Heat are 4-7. They've lost 3 in a row, and they just got beat by arguably the worst team in the NBA. I'm not panicking and saying like they're not going to make the playoffs, this and that. They got to do something. Like, there's got to be a move. Something's going to have to get done to just like show the guys in that locker room. Like, there was a lot of talk about like this season set up for the Heat. They're bringing back the same team. There's the continuity. There's this and that. Maybe this total speculation. Maybe they're too comfortable right now. Maybe there's too much comfort in like we're bringing back a team that went to the finals. We'll be okay. We can lose. No, dude. No, you're 4-7. It's really bad. And they not even like 4-7. Like, oh, it's competitive. Like, you got fucking blown out by the Pistons, dude. That's an embarrassing loss, no matter who's out, because that's a bad basketball team. Derrick Rose looked like peak MVP Derrick Rose against the Heat.
That's not good because he is far, far from that physically. So what guys would be going outbound in a trade in your mind? Like,
I'm not even saying necessarily that they have to make a trade for a star. They just need to shake it up a little bit.
Gotcha.
Because if you ask any Heat fan, this is a similar situation to what we're seeing in Denver too, right? Like, the Heat chose to not sign Jay Crowder because he wanted that extra year, and I think you can see the impact or the lack of him, like what you're missing by not having Jay Crowder with that team. He was a huge part of that run last year, and they just haven't really been able to completely replace it at the four spot.
We got to talk about Mo Harkless. I mean, huge downgrade. Downgrade.
Well, Mo, he's not even playing anymore. Like, well, he's been a part of the COVID thing too, but even before that, he was out of the rotation. And you're leaning on a guy like Kelly Olynyk to be in the starting lineup and play major minutes. So even if it's a deal to go get PJ Tucker's out there, like,
that would be such a good move if they.
But you know what I'm saying? Like,
I
don't think he wants to be in Houston anymore. I know they've said teams are calling about him. Like, he would be a good. He's the best corner 3-point shooter in the NBA statistically last year. Like, and obviously, who would fit better? Like, just off the top of your head, if you're like, who can play in the Heat culture? I mean, Tucker's one of those guys. So I mean, even if it's just a move like that,
would you trade Achua for him and another pick?
No. You would be trading. You would trade like maybe like a heavily like top 20 protected first round pick.
You think that could get him out of Houston? I feel like
Houston's just stacking up draft picks right now. They're just
they're
pressing it up.
Maybe I'm overestimating PJ Tucker's value. I just feel like
you are.
You would need more.
His value to a rebuilding team, you have to think about too.
Yeah.
Like even though they have players that can play, they know what they are. And if you're not going to get a young player for him, he's not that good. Like Precious's upside is like people are comparing him to Bam, and Bam's a top 15 player in the NBA. So if he has top 15 player in the NBA upside, you can't trade that for PJ Tucker.
Okay, well maybe
like PJ Tucker's a very good player, but he's also never played on a great team. Like these last couple of years were the best teams he's played on, and he was like the fourth best player. Like obviously I know he impacts their defense, but he's not. I think if you said like even lottery protected, maybe future first, like not even next year, like the year after, like down the line. Like you can't give up too much for PJ Tucker, but do something, and then whatever makes the contracts match. Like Iguodala is a expiring deal; they could probably match that up. Mm-hmm. But PJ, I don't know who else is out there, but PJ's a guy who sticks out to me because I know he kind of doesn't want to be in Houston.
Yeah, that'd be such a good fit.
But whatever it is, it's just something, like just a shakeup. Just to like let people know, like, hey, if we're gonna get blown out by the Pistons, you're not fucking safe. Yeah. Other than Jimmy and Bam and Tyler Hero.
Yeah, I'm with it. I don't think that's too bad of an overreaction.
But it's only an overreaction because it's 11 games into the year. But like,
but you're not saying that it's anything crazy. The move, it's just
or a crazy move. I mean, if you can go get Brad Beal, go get Brad Beal. Because again, we just talked about a team that went and got their guy, and we're talking about how much they've upgraded their team by getting James Harden. Mm-hmm. The Bucks got better. No matter what anybody wants to think, they're 9-4. Drew Holiday's better. The Celtics, when they're healthy, actually I don't know if they got better because Gordon Hayward's playing out of his mind. The Celtics are still very good. The Pacers got better, and we're going to talk about Caris Levert at the end of the show. But Pacers got better. Philly got a little bit better. Obviously, Brooklyn. I mean, everyone got better. The Heat stayed the same. Maybe they got to go out and get better. I don't know. My last overreaction for today is Lloyd Pierce is about to be on the hot seat very soon. And actually, this might not even be an overreaction. People might be saying this already, but the Hawks stink, dude. The Hawks are bad right now. They started off 3-0. They are 2-7 since then. And since January 2nd, when they started being really bad, they're 29th in the NBA in offense, which is staggering. Like they're actually in that time they're 6th in the NBA defensively. So ultimately, the problem here is Trae Young right now.
Yeah,
but he's not going to get like what are you going to do? So somebody's got to take the blame. So it's going to be Lloyd Pierce. It's his third year. They won 29 games in their first year, 20 games last year. Now they're 5-7, and they were 2-7 in their last 9. They made all these moves in the offseason, but Gallo hasn't really played, and Bogdanovich is now hurt. But without those guys, you still brought back essentially the core of the team that was. I mean, like if your starting lineup is Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Capella, or Cam Reddish.
We were very high on that.
You should still be better than last year.
Definitely.
They are substantially right now worse than last year. Part of that is Trae Young shooting like 26% from 3. His scoring is down by like 5 points. His assists, like everything's down. He's having an awful year. But if you're the front office and the owner, you're going to look at the coach and say, well, fix it.
Right. I mean, maybe it actually is his fault, Lloyd Pierce. Maybe he doesn't have these guys doing the right things. I don't know. But the team's underachieving very bad. They're 5-7. Yeah, I just said
5-7, but 5-7 doesn't tell the story because they started 3-0.
Right, and they haven't even been hit. It's not like they haven't been hit by COVID, right? Like
but the injuries. I mean, Gallinari hasn't played.
Yeah.
Bogdanovich has broke his knee.
Mm-hmm. But they haven't had a game where like they're decimated from
no. But no, those 6 guys I just named have played every game. Mm-hmm. Trae, Herder, Reddish, Hunter, Collins, and Capella. And here's the other thing. Maybe there really are some issues in that locker room. That whole John Collins thing and that John Collins, Trae Young thing that came out, maybe they really are having issues in that locker room. I've been in locker rooms that had issues too, but the person who usually falls because of that is the coach. And he's in his third year, and this is supposed to be a year where they make a jump. He could be in trouble. Maybe people just don't care about the Hawks, so no one's talking about it. But I hate saying this because I don't want people to lose their job. Like, I don't want him to lose his job unnecessarily because it's probably not totally his fault. But Trae Young's never going to get the blame because people for some reason love Trae Young. Yeah.
But I actually wouldn't be surprised. You know how you have your sixth sense for pegging people who fans are going to turn on? I think Trae Young is going to get flipped on pretty quickly within the next year or so. Because I don't even know if it's just – he's just too small, man. He's just too small. And
he's not even that – I mean, he's a good shooter, but he's not what everyone thought.
It's not that efficient, right, yeah.
Well – he shot 36% from three last year. That's
average.
That's his highest of his career. Like, his rookie year, he shot 32%. Mm-hmm. Last year, he shot 36%. This year, he's shooting like 23%. And that's what he's supposed to be, a shooter. Right. And the thing is he did the same thing in college.
I think people fall in love with these 35-footers and think that means you're a good shooter when it doesn't. It means you're an aggressive shooter. It means you're a willing shooter. But oftentimes that's just a bad shot.
here's the other thing about Trae Young. And again, I hate that it's going to come down on Lloyd Pierce because it probably eventually will if they can't turn it around. Since January 2nd, I told you, and I don't know where they are over the whole season, but since January 2nd, they have the sixth best defensive rating in the league. On the year when Trae Young is on the floor, he has the worst defensive rating of their starters. And their defense gets 3 points better defensive rating-wise when he's off the floor. So
that's significant.
They have the 29th offense, and when he's on the floor, their defense gets worse.
That's a problem, man. I'm with you. I think he's on the hot seat. And I think Trae Young is not helping him whatsoever. When I say he, I say Lloyd Pierce.
Right.
But,
right. It's probably not fair that it's going to happen. It
sucks because of how we were so high on the Hawks. I was very high on the Hawks preseason. So
yeah, I think I was high-ish as a playoff team. I think as I started to realize, like, the reason why we're so high on them is because they signed Danilo Gallinari and traded for Bogdan Bogdanovic. I was like, maybe we shouldn't be, like, that high on this team.
Yeah, the defensive issues were pretty glaring, honestly.
But yeah. I guess it's Capella. Like, their defense – DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Clint Capella, it's pretty staunch, like, defensive front line.
Yeah, but you're going to need Trae Young playing high 30 minutes, and that's just basically a highway to the rim.
Yep. Yeah. So it's unfortunate potentially for Lloyd, but we'll see what happens. That Pelicans game just went final. They won by 5. I watched most of it. Obviously, the fourth quarter was while we were recording the show. I don't like Zion, man. I don't. I know everyone loves Zion, and he had 31 tonight. I get it. He was 13 of 15 from the field, but I can't be the only one who sees how limited he is offensively. I can't be the only one who sees it. It's so glaring, and eventually it's going to be a big issue. I mean, it's already kind of an issue, right? They're not good. They just beat the Kings. They've been struggling really bad. Mm-hmm. I told you in the beginning of the year, it was hidden a lot by the fact that they have Brandon Ingram, so he doesn't have to be the first option. He's so lucky, dude. He is so lucky because if he was drafted first overall to a lot of other teams, I feel like people would be down on him. I don't think he would have the freedom to just score in the ways that he's scoring. Maybe.
Man, I'm torn. I'm not ready to go there just because, first of all, we gave Ben Simmons a 4-year leash and are now concerned about this shit. Like, he hasn't even played a full NBA season yet, So if he looks like if his game is this limited a year from now, my concerns will ramp up. But I just think he's such a young player with a really raw game, and the things that he is good at, he's borderline elite at. So if he can,
that's fine.
Yeah,
fine. But like, he is Look, dude, who's had more hype than Zion since LeBron? Nobody.
I don't think anybody has, but it's still early. Like he can look
can't
different.
He can't. I'm going to say this right now. We could put some type of long-term bet on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zion Williamson will never be a top 5 player in the NBA in his career.
I'd bet that right now.
That he will?
That he will be, yeah.
What do you want to bet? I bet you $100. We're still be doing the podcast because it's going to be super successful.
Exactly. But so what's the criteria? I mean, that would be an all-NBA team. First team all-NBA.
At top five in the MVP voting, maybe?
Okay.
I don't know.
In his career?
Yeah.
All right.
In his whole career.
Put $100 on it?
Okay.
All right, done. First, somebody mark this off of our throngs of listeners and viewers. Somebody write this. Yeah. That's a word, right?
Yeah.
It's going.
I don't think it's happened. He had 6 rebounds. He's soft.
Oh my God.
Well, now that we have a bet on it,
yeah,
I'm anti-Zion.
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox had 43 and 13, and they lost. The Kings have officially fallen back into kingdom.
Yeah.
They are kings. They are what they are.
And Marvin Bagley had a solid game, so they got huge problems if their two young, really good players played great. I mean, Buddy Hield played fine. Harrison Barnes, man, that guy.
Yeah, they've lost 3 in a row. They have the second worst record in the West now. Luke Walton, another hot seat guy, I would imagine, right?
Right. I mean, his half of a coaching job is in jeopardy because we know Alvin Gentry is also.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. They do have Alvin Gentry. Just waiting. And you know what's going to happen? They'll probably win more games with Alvin Gentry.
He's a better coach, yeah.
I mean, he's proven to at least be a decent coach.
Mm-hmm.
What else? It looks like, by the way, so the only other game tonight was this is a good transition into the final topic, actually. Clippers are pounding out the Pacers, it looks like.
Yeah, they're crushing them. They're up 20.
Pacers are obviously shorthanded because of the Oladipo trade. And Miles Turner's out, which, I mean, it's pretty clear there's a big difference here because that guy, he's, leading the league in blocks. He's been their anchor.
Country mile, yeah.
He's been their anchor, and they've already, given, how many points you have it on over there? They have it.
Yeah, they've given up 108.
With 9 minutes left in the fourth.
Yeah, they're going to put up at least 130, I think.
But the news for the Pacers, which was really like the craziest news by far over the weekend and last week, the 4-team deal that saw Harden go to Brooklyn and then saw Oladipo is now in Houston. He hasn't played yet for them, and now Caris Levert is in the Pacers. It was held up while everyone was doing their physicals, and it turns out what held up the trade was that Caris Levert, in the MRI that he had for his physical, that it turns out he has a small mass on one of his kidneys, and he is now out indefinitely, which is, I mean, it's such a scary thing to think about, right? Now, I do look at it both two ways. One is, I gotta imagine if the Pacers thought that it was like, as fucked up as this sounds, like if it was life-threatening or career-threatening, then the trade wouldn't have gone through.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
So my initial thought is, he's out indefinitely to have it removed and biopsied to make sure, but they think it's nothing. That would be my assumption. But also, hey, maybe this trade saved this guy's life. You know what I mean? It's possible that this James Harden, everyone in a crazy fucked up way, everyone's shitting on James Harden. James Harden might have just saved Caris Levert's life, people. Think about it. Think about that. Because yes, it's a small mass. Yes, the trade probably wouldn't have gone through, whatever. But maybe a small mass becomes a big mass, and maybe maybe impacts other. Who knows? I don't know. Medicine. So I'm not a doctor, but
don't these guys have physicals before the season starts. All of them. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So whatever this is,
right.
is wrap is.
But like
is
small mass is like could be like so small. I don't know. But
I'm
yes,
just saying,
yes.
I'm just saying whatever this is developed very, very recently, and we've heard so many early detection in these sort of things. I'm not going to pretend to be a doctor, but yeah, I mean, this is a brand new development for this guy that truly may not have people might not have been aware of this.
Yeah.
Until it
they obviously
was a
weren't
big
aware of
deal.
it. So
Yeah.
like, although actually, Mr. Bubbles will answer your question. It's just funny saying that during this
Bubbles,
conversation.
a good question.
We'll answer that question here in a second, but I just want to finish talking about Caris. Yeah, I think it's wild that it happened like that. Shout out to the Pacers staff. I mean, their medical staff for being as thorough as they were. But it is wild to think that who knows, anything could have happened if this trade doesn't go through. So I guess in the end, good for Caris Levert, right? Like,
yeah, amazing.
It's wild.
I am totally with you that if this was something more serious, the Pacers would have stopped the trade. They're not going to just give away Oladipo for a guy that they're not sure about. I know that is kind of.
And they did get additional compensation, which seems weird, also.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just written into the CBA or something, that if a guy has like a blip on their physical, you have to send another. They got like another second-round pick in money.
Okay. That is kind of weird, actually.
But we'll see, because, I mean, obviously the real life aspect of we just want the guy to be healthy and want him to be okay and all that. But also, I do think this guy's got like all-star upside.
Yeah.
And I think he is going to be really good. I think he fits really well with the Pacers. So, obviously for basketball reasons, we hope he's okay too. But more importantly, it's just really good they found it. It's a crazy story, but good for him. Good on them too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Mr. Bubbles jumped in at the last second with a question. Oh, look at this! Look at
this guy,
Mr. Bubbles. You know what?
Tell the listeners what we're looking at here.
Mr. Bubbles, I'm not answering your question, but for the listeners who didn't see it, his YouTube picture that I couldn't see because it was very small in the comments is Donald Trump's face on Brock Lesnar's body.
Really, really well done Photoshop as well.
I mean, it's a good Photoshop. It looks like it was done with that face swap app.
Oh, probably.
But because of that, I'm not going to answer that question. We already talked about that guy and that topic a lot on this show anyways. All right, well, that's it. I think that is the only appropriate way to wrap the show today. Shout out to Caris Levert. Hope everything's good.
Yep.
That's the way we wrap the show. We'll be back tomorrow. There are a bunch of games that are supposed to happen tomorrow night. We will see how many of them do. Obviously, Cleveland, Washington was already postponed. And coincidentally, after tomorrow, the Wizards are on a long road trip. I wonder if the NBA was anticipating something crazy happening in Washington, D.C. this week. Maybe on Wednesday? I don't know. But they're gone for 4 games. Actually, 8 of their next 10 games are on the road. I had a buddy text me today who was like, do the Wizards play at home this week? Because it's going to be Washington, D.C. is on lockdown right now.
I honestly didn't even come close to crossing my mind.
It didn't. When he texted me that, I thought he was talking about COVID because they have a bunch of guys with COVID.
Yeah.
But he said he saw like on the news, there's like they're already the streets are like empty.
That's some good foresight by the NBA there, because they cannot afford to be rescheduling games that aren't due to COVID. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, all right. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. Last game tomorrow night is at 10-ish. So same time, 11 o'clock if you're watching us live. If not, thanks for listening. Later.
Take care.